Here is we do stream from a few other platforms, which should be Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and X.
How about this? How about this? Third time's a charm.
Wait, let me sip my drink.
One after you sip, you are gone.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Shelly Speaks Truth right here on 2rawfortv.tv. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome, and I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Now, what we do around here is we do stream from a few other platforms, which usually are Facebook, YouTube, X, and Instagram. But if you are watching on those platforms, if you would like to see the entire show, you will have to come over to 2rawfortv.tv, and that is where you will see the duration of the show. And that is the number 2, raw, the number 4, tv.tv. Again, that is the number 2, raw, the number 4, tv.tv. And once again, welcome to the show. Now, tonight we will be discussing a few things, but the main topic for tonight will be birthright citizenship, since that is one of the most controversial policies within the Trump administration. And we all know that immigration has been at the forefront of the media and everywhere for pretty much since Trump came into office. He came in with a hard stance against illegal immigration. And the border czar, Tom Homan, did say, proceeding up to the election, that they would come in, come in running with immigration as far as deporting people who are in the country illegally. And quite obviously, that has caused a number of varying opinions, with a good number of the American public, the American citizen public, agreeing with Trump and Tom Homan on how immigration has become not immigration, but illegal immigration has become a really big issue in the country, especially over the past 4 years during the Biden administration. And numbers are estimated that up to 20 to 30 million people were let into the country without the proper documentation or no documentation at all. So there has been an influx of immigrants coming into the country, and it has caused a financial strain on the economy and things like that. You know, there's been a number of crimes that have been committed by some of the people that have come here. And it's not the majority of the immigrants that have come in here that are committing crimes. I think most people know that, because some people are saying, oh, they're making it seem like the people that are coming into the country are committing crimes and doing this and that. And some people's argument is, well, if you came into the country and you didn't do it the proper way, and you came into the country without going through the legal immigration process, you already were in violation of the law, therefore you are a criminal. And some people, strongly feel that way. And yes, technically that's the case. If you violated the country's immigration laws, that is illegal, and that would make you a criminal. But when it comes to hard crime that some of these people have been engaging in, killing people and robbing people and assaulting people and things like that. Some of the people that have come into the country have done that, and because there is no paper trail, some of these people are still roaming the country and no one knows where they are. So that is also a problem. But one of the things that President Trump has also talked about in the immigration, within the immigration process, is how, some women have abused the birthright citizenship, basically, which states that if your child, if you come into the country as an illegal immigrant, you don't have your paperwork and things like that, your paperwork has expired and you're no longer here with any type
for people to come into the country, have a child, and then the child automatically becomes a citizen. And he's stated several times in press conferences and things like that that the 14th Amendment became law to give citizenship to former slaves and their descendants. And the law has been, exploited. So, what recently happened is Trump signed an executive order pretty much saying that birthright citizenship would be coming to an end in the country. And of course, a number of judges went to block that on a federal level. And it ended up going to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court pretty much sided with Trump and saying that, people being able to come into the country not being a citizen and have a child, and the child automatically becomes a citizen, that is an abuse of the 14th Amendment, because the 14th Amendment was never intended for that. And basically, although the Supreme Court did not end birthright citizenship,
they gave Trump an avenue to go ahead and start the process to end it by stating that these federal judges and things like that cannot block Trump from going ahead and continuing with his policy to ultimately end birthright citizenship. Obviously, that has.
Hold on. It looks like your mic went out for a little bit.
My mic went out?
Went out for a minute.
Okay.
Back in. About the last minute or so.
Okay. I don't know where I got cut off at, but basically, in a nutshell, Trump signed an executive order stating that birthright citizenship in America would be coming to an end. He continues to state that the 14th Amendment is being abused by individuals who are not citizens to come here, have a child. The child automatically becomes a citizen. And in many cases, if a mother comes to the country and she has a baby, she's not going to be deported because she has a baby here in the country who is a citizen, which started the whole term anchor baby, because people were basically anchoring themselves into the country by way of coming on American soil, having a baby that would ultimately be an American citizen because they were born here through birthright citizenship. So, the mother would be able to stay here with her child, because that would, basically be the thing to do. Like, we're not going to separate a mother from her baby. So in many cases, it worked out for the mother that she would be able to stay in the country with her baby. Now, Trump's argument is that people are exploiting that. They're not going through the proper immigration channels, because in many instances, once they have that baby, 9.9 times out of 10, they're going to be staying in the country with that baby. And that is how they pretty much secure their spot in America without going through the proper immigration process, and then basically being able to buy themselves some time to go ahead and get that citizenship without doing it before, coming through the immigration process the proper way. And so, Trump's way of kind of striking that down was to go ahead and sign that executive order, pretty much starting the process to end birthright citizenship. Once he did that, a number of federal judges, of course, pretty much halted that. So it ended up going to the Supreme Court, and the decision of the Supreme Court was basically that those federal judges would not have the right to stop Trump from getting that process started within ending birthright citizenship. So that is pretty much where that stands right now. I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, all of this is supposed to be finalized by October. So by October, birthright citizenship could definitely be ending in the United States of America, and that has left a lot of people upset, scrambling, and worried that they may get deported. even people who, had that protection under birthright citizenship, they are worried that they may no longer be citizens because they have parents who are not citizens. Now, within that, if the individual that was born here has at least one parent who is a citizen, their citizenship is protected. If they have parents who are not citizens but are like legal residents, their immigration, their citizenship is protected. But a lot of people are angry because they've been saying, this administration is coming in and basically undoing decades of policies that have been allowed to happen in the country. One of those being that 14th Amendment being able to be used in order for, undocumented mothers to have babies in the United States, and those babies automatically become citizens. And in many instances, those mothers have been able to anchor their citizenship through their child being an American citizen. So again, it has left a lot of people outraged and angry. They're saying that Trump is basically breaking the law because the 14th Amendment allows for this to happen. But Trump is going back centuries saying not so fast, because when this policy, this amendment to the Constitution was implemented, it was not for immigrants because there weren't very many immigrants in this country at all at the time. So it was never intended for any type of immigration policies. And that, I believe, is one of the reasons why the Supreme Court went ahead and gave him the power to go ahead and proceed forward with basically being able to do away with birthright citizenship. So my opinion on the situation, and I'm just learning these things because I am a descendant of individuals who were enslaved in America. I'm not an immigrant. My ancestors were here before America was a country. So I'm not really familiar with immigration. But what I'm learning is that immigration is a very time-consuming process where you have some people waiting 10 or more years to become citizens. So it kind of opened my eyes a little bit to how tedious the immigration process is and how difficult and costly it is. That's things that I was very ignorant to. I wasn't aware that the immigration process was so expensive, time-consuming, and difficult. So, although I feel that people should come into the country legally, because if you don't, you're violating the law and you're putting yourself at risk for deportation and even, being put in jail. So I don't think that, in my opinion, I don't think that coming to this country is worth that type of risk. But again, the immigration process is going to have to get better as far as, the time it takes to become a citizen and things like that. I think that is something that will be fair to people who want to come into the country. And, it'll make the process less strenuous for them so that they won't end up in a situation where, like right now, I seen an article, and I don't even know how this happens. Now, I guess some people, because if I'm correct, I believe that you have to renew your immigration status every year or every couple of years. Some people are saying that they're being exploited because they want them to continue to pay the cost to update that residency or, legal residency or whatever. And they're prolonging the process for them to become citizens because they want to continue to be able to charge them those fees. I think that is very exploitive. And that's something that needs to come to an end, because you have situations right now where you have people who, I guess, may have started the process legally to come in, and they've had visas and things like that. And by it being so costly and things like that, you have people who have expired visas, and they're at risk of deportation if they haven't already been deported, although they did start the process through legal means. And I just feel like the system could get better, but on the opposite end of that, I feel like individuals need to understand that they're putting themselves at risk by coming into the country with no documentation at all. And since the previous administration's immigration policies were nowhere near as stringent and strict as this current administration, I don't think people should be shocked or surprised that they're being deported, because again, these people told you what they were going to do before they came into office. And I mean, at this point, if you don't have your documentation, you are going to have to leave and then try to come back through legal means. I also stand by my perspective that the Biden administration really did set people up for failure, because that app that they had, where you could just download an app and then sign up for a immigration hearing or whatever, that really didn't make any sense to me, because those people have to wait for a court date and things like that. Meanwhile, they're here with nothing. And a lot of those people are going to be deported. Some of those people, from what I'm hearing, when they're showing up to the hearings, they're being deported. So that was a failure on behalf of the Democrats and the Biden administration. And it really set people up for false hope, because what happened with the Democrats is they thought that with this influx of people that they let into the country, that they would be building up a new voter base, because a lot of people are really tired of the Democrats' policies. The Democrats have a lot of really radical policies that the American people don't agree with. So they were trying to, put themselves in the position to have millions of potential voters. And now all of that stuff is backfiring. And people are really suffering the consequences of being as gullible as they were to believe that they were going to have some type of protection under those things that weren't based in anything that is legally binding in the United States. And the Trump administration, although, people are saying what they're doing is very inhumane and it's not right and it's violating people's human rights. And, I agree with that to a certain extent. Some of the things that they're doing are pretty harsh. But at the same time, they have a legal premise to do what it is that they're doing. And when they have a legal premise to do what they're doing, there really isn't any argument there. Because, again, people came into the country knowing that they weren't doing it by means that were, like I said, backed by any type of legal standing. So you had a lot of people putting themselves at risk because they wanted to come to the United States. And unfortunately, that's just not how the immigration policies work. You have to follow the immigration policies from a legal standpoint. And if you don't do that, then again, you put yourself at risk for being deported. But another question that a lot of people are posing is, why are so many people leaving their country to come to the United States? I mean, obviously we know that the United States has some unique laws and things like that. There was a guy, he was coming from, was it Ukraine? No, it wasn't Ukraine. It was Iran. And there's a guy who, he has a show, and he's at the border. He was at the border a lot through the Biden administration, because people were literally just walking in. And he was there recording, asking people questions and asking them where they're from and why they're here, why are they coming to the United States. And the guy in Iran said he came here because he doesn't have any freedom in his country. And, people come here for various reasons. A lot of people come to the United States because they say that it's a place where you can come and, set up a lifestyle for yourself that you can't set up in their country. But again, a lot of people are asking, why are so many people leaving their country to come here instead of staying home and, contesting their government and building up their homeland? And that's another point that I see relevance in, because, coming to the United States and putting yourself at risk and then just being deported back home anyway is kind of, defeating the purpose. And I've never lived in another country, so I can't really speak on that. But to me, I do feel like, a lot of people should go back home and, challenge their government to get some of the things changed and, begin to build up a better life for them in their homeland. I've been talking for a minute, and I haven't asked my co-host if he has any input on this topic.
I mean, on the last thing that you just said is, I think, it's kind of a lot of people come here. You're asking the right question, right? The thing is, you got to keep on asking. I would say you're asking the right question. Just continue to ask those questions. Like, why are these people? Why aren't people just changing? If the problem is government, why aren't the people just staying home and overthrowing government? Why? When you start thinking about and asking those questions, a lot of revelation comes to start happening. Because that's a very valid question, and it's right. So, I mean, just by the question alone, you can obviously see that it's not government. Right?
Well, a lot. I mean, like, I listen to a lot of commentary where you have people from various countries, call into a lot of these podcasts and things that I listen to, and that question is asked a lot. Why don't you go home and build up your homeland? And you have a lot of people, especially from the African continent, that says there's too much corruption in the government. So people are like, okay, why aren't you combating the government and, fighting to get that corruption out of the country?
So, because from my experience, right, and my experience is a lot different than somebody coming from Africa, right? That's across the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
But from my experience and from the people that I've seen their experiences, right, and coming from kind of coming from an immigrant community, that's not really relatable in like the island community, right? Most islanders do come here to get whatever kind of milk and honey they can get to go back and build up the country back at home, right? And most Jamaicans, most Haitians, most Dominicans, Trinidadians, from like East Indies, things like that. And these are my experiences, right? I can't really speak outside of that because these are kind of like the people I know about, right? For the most part, they come here to work hard because media and everything that we know from where we come from tells us it's easier to get that income, right? To be able to build up that bag, right? And once you build that bag in America and you bring it back to your home country, that bag is triple, quadruple in Jamaican times 100 times more, right? Than what it would be in America. So That's why you see a lot of people are just really setting up their retirement when we're talking about this island, right? Um, like I've mentioned before on this show, I'm one of the lost ones, right? I'm one of the ones that come home, that come here and cut ties. Don't really have a plan on going back home and building up retirement home, back home. I'm getting here and I've invested in having children here. I'm invested in this country, in this land. You know what I mean? But speak from like that the government is so corrupt and you can't get anything done and that I can't really speak.
Well, that's what a lot of people say. That are, this is, I'm just listening to people having conversations online because a lot of people in America are like, why are you guys not building up your economy back at home? And a lot of people are saying because the government allows themselves to be exploited and they don't funnel the money back into the people. Now, I can't really speak on island nations because I don't really hit. You have a lot of people calling in from Haiti saying that their government is very corrupt, the people are being exploited, and the money is not funneling back into the people. I don't really hear too many people from Jamaica saying that or like other islands. You have a few that say it.
But here's the thing with the Haitians that not I'm not an actual terrorist like that, but from my understanding, right, and having some Haitian children and have Haitian children, a little bit kind of familiar with that community. A lot of that is coming out of Port Airport Prince, two little small places, right? So people that really come here, and especially in the Haitian community, they stick together more than any other black people that on the face of the earth, right? That community is really into going and building up and going back home and building up, but that building up doesn't really happen in Port Bear because that's so corrupt, right? It's happening out on the countryside where you see these big mansions and stuff coming up. You know what I mean? Out in these remote areas, that's really, yeah, I can see that. And it's probably the same thing everywhere, right? Because even in Jamaica, you're not going back to go build up gangster.
So what is happening in those countries that those particular areas are not getting the resources? Because
corruption just like here. But the thing is, when you're over there, you don't hear about the corruption. You hear about the good. Right? You don't hear about how hard it is. You don't hear about the fact that you really can get trapped up in a cycle of paying bills and working to pay bills and 40 hours and barely can get enough sleep, and you don't hear none of that. And you got to understand, a lot of this information is coming. Well, back in my day, a lot of this information is coming from television. Nowadays, a lot of that information is a lot of people online in the communities that I go to. Like when I get online and I happen to like Jamaica and stuff like that, people are like, "Yo, man, what the hell y'all doing over there?" Like literally, what the hell y'all doing over there? I have to get up in the morning. I don't have to go slave to make sure I eat tomorrow.
well, yeah, because I always say this: there's opportunities in America, but you will work for them. It's not. If you want to live a certain way in this country, you're gonna either, in many instances, be getting a lot of government assistance, or you're gonna be working hard. There's kind of like no in between.
As you can see right now, the government assistance is only dependent on what political parties in power. So, I mean, if you're dependent on
true, but government assistance is never gonna go away. It's never gonna go away, but it can be diminished.
Yeah, fluctuates.
Yeah.
Like currency.
that kind of has always been my thing, and you explained it for me to understand it a little bit better, because people, those are the questions that people had, like, why are people flocking to America? Can't they just create similar structures in their homelands? Well, like to make their currencies worth more and things like that. But again, that's a really deep rabbit hole that is multi-layered and multifaceted. I definitely don't have all the answers to those questions, but
if you want to talk about corruption, why did Trump just run the whole thing on killing corruption and turn around and tell us that there's nothing to see in Jesse in absolute files? So the corruption is everywhere.
Of course, there's corruption everywhere, because wicked people are in charge of the government system. So there's corruption all over the planet. I'm not trying to make it seem like America has no. I mean, America is quite possibly one of the most corrupt nations on the planet.
I would bet you say they teach everybody.
I mean, yes and no, because the people who actually run the world, they're not in government. They control government. So, that's an even further rabbit hole. So you're gonna have corruption everywhere in the world, because again, these governmental systems are run by corrupt people. Do we have the phone line up? Because one of my main questions tonight was I wanted to hear from the people and how they felt about birthright citizenship. Do they think it's something that should be done away with in the United States of America? And through my studies, there aren't very many countries on the planet that have birthright citizenship. So I'm not sure why people are acting so frantic, like birthright citizenship is some common thing.
Hold on. You tell me, you and I, we get up right now and we move family to Jamaica. I don't know, I'm asking, right? As you said from your studies. We move the family to Jamaica. And God forbid we have another child, right? Children are beautiful things, but we just have to have them, right? I think you would agree. Right?
Ain't gonna get no argument from me.
And the child is born in Jamaica. That child is not by birth a Jamaican citizen. Like, what is that child? No man, no man's land? Because it's obviously not American citizen.
Well, if we're not American Jamaican citizens, and we have citizenship in another country,
Right.
then our child would have to get citizenship where we are, where our country of origin.
Our country of origin. So our children would be automatically be American.
We would have to take our behinds home and apply for our child to have citizenship in our country of origin.
But the child, we would have to bring our child through an immigration system.
Yes, because our child would be an immigrant, but we would be citizens.
But until then, our child would be a citizen of no man's land.
It all depends. I don't know the citizenship laws in.
So that's why to me the birthright citizenship
But
makes sense, right? Because wherever the child is born, it makes sense for that child to be a citizen of that place where that child was born, regardless if it was born wherever the parents are from. To me, that makes complete sense, because otherwise, like you just said, the child becomes a citizen of no man's land.
Well, I'm going to have to look further into that, because if we're still citizens of America,
Right.
and I get a visa and I go to Jamaica for 3 years, but I'm not a citizen of Jamaica, then I believe that our child would be an American citizen because we're both American citizens. That's not what they're doing for birthright citizenship.
Let's ask Mexico though.
Yeah, but you're conflating two things that don't correspond because what they're doing with birthright citizenship right now, at least one of your parents has to be an American citizen in order for you to be an American citizen.
Well, that's the same thing. So that's what, if two Jamaicans come here.
Neither one of them are American citizens.
Right.
Though. One of them has to be an American citizen.
And the child is born here, right? The child is born here.
Okay.
The child is not a citizen of the country, but that if the child is not a citizen of this country, how is the child?
No, because their parents are not American citizens.
Right, I understand that part, but I understand it. That's what you're saying that we would like to move to, right? But in the meantime, where is that child a citizen of?
The country of their parents' origin, Jamaica.
Are we sure about that?
That's the way it's supposed to be because you're still, just because you came to America and had a baby, you're still a citizen of Jamaica. You're not a citizen of America.
Scenario, right?
You're going to have to ask Brock or whatever one, because you came to America, but you're not a citizen. But the mother just ended up giving birth here. She still has to go back home to her country of origin. So her baby should be a citizen of her country of origin. And her country of origin isn't America, it's Jamaica.
Okay, Brock, if me and my wife, as U.S. citizens, leave the country and go to Jamaica and have a child in Jamaica, is that child a U.S. citizen?
That's not what you asked.
Citizen, just because you and your wife are U.S. citizens. For a child born abroad to U.S. citizen parents to acquire U.S. citizenship at birth, at least one parent must have been a U.S. citizen who lived in the U.S. or its territories for a certain period before the child's birth. Here's how it works. Requirements. Under U.S. law, specifically Section 301 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, if both parents are U.S. citizens, at least one must have resided in the U.S. or a U.S. territory, like Puerto Rico, at any point before the child's birth. There's no specific time requirement for this residence, but it must be documented. Process. If the child meets these criteria, they can be registered as a U.S. citizen by applying for a consular report of birth abroad, CRBA, at a U.S. embassy or consulate in Jamaica. You'd need to provide proof of your citizenship, example, U.S. passports, evidence of your prior U.S. residence, example, school records, tax returns, and the child's birth certificate from Jamaica. The child would also be eligible for a U.S. passport. Jamaican citizenship, the child may also be considered a Jamaican citizen by birth under Jamaican law, as Jamaica grants citizenship to those born on its soil, jus ali. This could result in dual citizenship, which the U.S. permits. If neither parent meets the U.S. residence requirement, the child would not automatically acquire U.S. citizenship and might need to pursue.
So that's just the resident. That's the resident
what
part.
I just said.
So
they'll be a Jamaican citizen if their parents are Jamaican citizens.
No.
If their parents are American citizens, even if they were born in Jamaica, they will be an American citizen.
So if we were residents of the United States before now,
You said if we're American citizens and I go have a baby in Jamaica, is the baby going to be an American citizen? Yes, because I'm an American citizen.
But that's also a resident, right? For prior to the baby being born, just like you said, right?
A resident as well.
Right, resident as well as a citizen.
Right.
But the baby was born in Jamaica, so the baby does automatically
have citizenship in Jamaica, and they can have dual citizenship into America because they're an American citizen because they have American citizen parents.
Same way, if a child is born here, they should have American citizenship.
Not if their parents are not American citizens.
But we weren't Jamaican citizens, and the child was born in Jamaica.
I get what you're saying, but that's not the way it's going to be in America, not anymore.
That's where it should be. That's how it should be.
It doesn't have to be that way because that's not the law. That's no longer going to be the law in America. Unless you have one American citizen parent or a legal resident. That's what they're changing the immigration law into. That's just what it's going to be.
But it's got to go through the House of Congress and the Senate, right? I mean, it has to go through all of it, right?
They're not. They're not going through the House of
Everybody has-
Congress and the citizen because they're saying the 14th Amendment never permitted anybody to have birthright citizenship. That's what's in question right now.
They're gonna
It's
fight.
been happening for quite some time, but it's no legal premise for it. It's something that they've just been allowing to happen, and that was a mistake on their behalf. They should have tried to do some type of ratification to that amendment and get a law passed through Congress in order for that to happen, because now so many people have been getting birthright citizenship through that, but there was never any real legal standing for that.
I honestly don't see that one holding up.
It probably will, unless they send it. If it goes through Congress, if Congress votes on it and they say, okay, we're ratifying the 14th Amendment, and now we're going to add an amendment to it saying that we will grant birthright citizenship to all people born in America, that's the only way that's going to happen. I don't foresee that happening any other way but through an act of Congress, because the Supreme Court already gave Trump the permission to go ahead and kind of start working on ending that loophole or whatever they were able to do in order for people to have birthright citizenship, because they don't want people to automatically be citizens if their parents aren't citizens, or at least one of their parents are citizens. I mean, like I said, it's kind of up in the air right now, because it could go either way. They could say, okay, we don't agree with this, and as Congress, we're going to step in and have a vote, and then we're going to add an amendment to this particular, we're going to add, not an amendment, we're going to amend this particular amendment and, permit birthright citizenship to be solid in this amendment. That hasn't happened yet. And that would need to happen in order for that to be implanted into the law. But they're going to get a lot of pushback and resistance because a lot of American citizens don't want that. But again, that could happen. That's very much a real possibility that Congress will step in and say, we don't agree with any of this, and we feel that anybody born on American soil should be an American citizen, regardless to if their parents are citizens or not. I don't think that's going to happen, because Americans are very nationalistic people, especially white Americans.
And we make that case, then let's and how far do we take that retro, right? Because let's go by their story, by his story, right? So Columbus's offsprings, they're not citizens.
No.
So then the whole
Well,
thing
it
is a shambles.
depends. It depends. Columbus's offspring. What do you mean? Columbus wasn't even in North America. Columbus wasn't in North America.
So the settlers, whatever freaking settlers that created this freaking country, that came over here from
The settlers wrote themselves into the Constitution, though.
right. So their children weren't birthright, wouldn't have birthright citizenship.
But America didn't exist when the settlers got here.
Okay, so upon the freaking creation of America, then,
Okay.
right, the people that came here right before that,
Okay.
right, their offspring would not be citizens of America.
How, when they became American citizens?
I just throw it all in the fucking garbage. Just throw it all in the garbage.
Listen, this is a very historic time in America, because now
It only just makes plain and simple sense. If you're
people
born
don't
on
agree with
soil-
that. They don't agree that you should be a citizen unless you have a parent who is a citizen. And an overwhelming number of people agree with that. It's not like it's a little bit of people that's like, oh, well, we don't agree with that. No, the majority of the people who are American citizens agree that at least one of your parents should be an American citizen in order for you to be an American citizen. I mean, I don't really see a problem with it. I mean, because if your parents aren't citizens and they got to leave the country, why the hell would you leave your baby behind?
See, that's a different conversation, right? That's the second stage. Of
That
the
doesn't make
conversation.
any sense.
Well, that's the second stage of the conversation, right? I come here as a
Don't come here and have a baby if you're not legal. You're putting your family at risk. That's just dumb.
Hold on. I came here before the current freaking administration. I just kind of acted, right? And when I came here, shit was great.
But do you have a residency at least?
But hold on.
No, I'm asking the question.
It don't
Does the
matter.
person have
No,
so they came with no papers, no nothing. They just dropped down and said, "Hey, I'm here."
I came across the damn border.
Okay, you're gonna go
With the
home,
rest of the million of people
and then your
out there.
baby's gonna get deported with.
Came across the border.
Okay.
Me and my wife, right? Came across the border. My
Mhm.
wife was pregnant
Okay.
when we came across the border, right?
Mhm.
Came across the border. We had the baby. We started. Shit was sweet because we done lived here for 4 years. We was getting assistance for the baby. We was getting housing. We was getting food stamps. We was getting doggone trips, Uber trips. We
You're so sarcastic.
I'm not being sarcastic.
Yes, you are.
Yes, because we went to New York, so we were getting all of this. Right?
People who don't know you don't know that you're being
I'm
sarcastic.
not being sarcastic. We were getting all of this, right?
Okay.
So, we had sweet life for like 3 years because we came in the first year. After the first year, when they sounded the alarms and said, "Hey, listen, we need a new mayor. We don't want a Democratic Party. We're opening the border. Y'all come on in. Hurry up, get here." We only got about 4 years.
We only got about 4 years.
We were one of the first to come, right? So we started enjoying. We had about 3 good years of all those great benefits, right? And we was living sweet. We done got comfortable. We was telling motherfuckers about their ass and everything. We was looking out down at black folks, telling them, "Hey, listen, y'all ain't even good like us. I don't even know if you see my pants."
Serious.
Right? That's how we was doing. All of a sudden, Orange Man comes in, and he comes in with his group of cronies, and they're saying they're going to cut all of this shit, right? And it's like, wait a minute, I'm not used to all of this shit. I haven't started saving to actually build back up anything back up. I've just been kind of chilling and kind of getting comfortable. So now all of a sudden, we done had the baby. Baby's 3 years old, about to have our 4th birthday. You want to have the 4th year of old baby back home? No.
What's so wrong with back home though? Are you going
The money that
are
we
you
getting for free and all
That's
of this
not-
stuff? We're not getting that back
that
home.
doesn't
We're not getting
matter.
no Uber rides.
That's
We're
why
not
I don't
getting
care about
We're not
that.
getting we're not getting no doggone government assistance. We're not getting no food stamps. None of that.
Well, you shouldn't have got too comfortable. You should have known that you was coming over here on some bullshit,
Now we
and
gotta
you
go-
should have been stacking your money just in case they send you back home. You'll go back home with American currency that
Now I
might
gotta
be
go
worth
back
more in
home,
your country.
And I got to go milk cows so the baby can.
Really, don't be dramatic and ridiculous. I understand human nature, so I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I don't understand why these people don't want to go back home, especially if you were able to come over here and live off government assistance and not have to work or anything like that, or get a really easy job that might be very challenging for you to get back home, like a Uber driver or a DoorDash driver, Postmates or Instacart or whatever. Like other opportunities don't exist back where you're from. So again, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I don't understand how people can get comfortable with that. But just like every other decision that you make in life, if you do something risky, you know that there's consequences for that.
I think it might be risky enough for me to just go underground for the next 4 years and then maybe this orange man go
Listen,
away
they
and
snatching people up like crazy out here. So much so, the other day, I believe the mayor of, was it Los Angeles? Karen Bass, which is it Los? I think it's Los Angeles. She just, broke down, and it's like y'all are going so hard for people that y'all know. Y'all already knew was gonna be deported when this man got into office. They made it their mission to continue to reiterate that they were gonna deport a lot of people out of the country. So this whole surprise is like, what are you surprised about? From the time he started running for president, because you had a whole year plus that he announced that he was going to be running for president again, and you had no way of knowing that he wasn't going to win the election. Kamala sure as hell wasn't going to win, but I guess people had that much faith in her. That year and a half that he announced that he was running, you should have just been getting prepared, like saving as much as you could and getting shit set up for the possibility that you might be getting deported. And I'm sorry, but I can't feel sorry for people that made a risky decision and now everybody's supposed to stump the yard. No, I'm just not going to do that. And I mean, it doesn't make me insensitive. You made a decision knowing the risk of your actions, just like anybody else in the world. If you do something that you know is risky and could have consequences that you don't want it to have, you put yourself in that position. So what is anybody else supposed to do for you? We can't go in there and change the immigration laws, so I really don't know what to say. And like I said, I do feel like some of the things that they're doing are harsh because I'm a humane person and I don't like to see people being, ripped out of their homes and families crying and people, saying my dad is getting deported and things like that. People who have a family and a home and a life it's something that really is very sad to witness. But at the same time, there's consequences for your actions and we can't do anything about it. Those are laws that were written and implemented before many of us were even born. So unless Congress does something to amend these laws, then that's just the laws that are on the books. And that's what people are going to have to go by.
You hear about Joe Biden's doctor, Stephen V, Congress?
Joe Biden's doctor? You talking about Dr. Fauci?
No, doctor.
His medical doctor?
Yeah.
His personal doctor?
Yes,
Pleading the fifth for what?
He's being questioned in Congress.
About, for what reason? About Joe Biden?
Yeah.
Who cares about Joe Biden? He's not in office anymore.
If he was actually, because the whole thing is,
Hold that thought. We're getting a call. Caller, you're live.
Citizenship is a right that was granted for slaves. I think Trump is reading that correctly. But then you gotta just counter that with everything else he's doing as far as just trying to get himself away from all of the guilt and stuff that he's done in the past. He has basically admitted that he's on the Epstein list now.
Mm-hmm.
So, when he said he's basically because now, once Elon Musk exposed him for being on the Epstein list, all of a sudden there's no list.
I mean, none of these people's hands are clean. I mean, they're not.
Yeah.
I don't think
they're definitely not. What's that?
So you think that's the reason why the list has been shut down because Trump is on it, or Trump?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Not only is Trump on it, but his one of his close compadres, Steve Bannon, who tried to put me out there and did whole articles on Two Rover TV and FYF 9/11 and the dangers to white America and all this other stuff like that. Steve Bannon is also on the Epstein list. So it also kind of it smashes the whole QAnon thing. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. This Trump that was this valiant hero against child sex trafficking and all of this other stuff like that. I mean, maybe now, but he definitely has a checkered past where he was once indulging in that same child sex trafficking that he was that he's now fighting. Or acting like he's fighting. It actually smashes the whole QAnon thing to be where I always told people it was just a marketing tool for black people who like conspiracy theories. You know what I'm saying? This was their marketing tool for black people during the election. They didn't know how to read, was this QAnon conspiracy theory. And Steve Bannon is the author of the QAnon conspiracy theory. So he can't have Steve Bannon. He's not going to risk his people. So he basically pardoned thousands of corporate elite billionaires and millionaires from child sex crimes. You know, by saying that the list doesn't exist when they already told you it does exist. They said it exists. It says all these people said they saw the list. You know what I'm saying? Now all of a sudden it doesn't exist? Like, make it make sense. You know, I think not only is Donald Trump you know, he's the leader and staff, he is the chief, but he's also the biggest gaslighter in America right now. Donald Trump he is the biggest gaslighter. What list? Like, what are you talking about? What list? The list that you guys are talking about and trying to play this whole thing. And what's scary, it's not, I mean, scary to other people. What would be scary to the layperson to think about is something was on the list the whole time. So why would he even include that into his marketing strategy about what he's trying to do for the country?
Because
so basically,
he needed to appear to be more relatable to the everyday Joe.
But he knew how diabolical is that. Oh, we're going to get everybody on the list, but he knows he's on the list. Probably one of the main people.
Yeah, but that's what slick people do. I mean, they do whatever they got to do.
Yeah, they'll help you. They'll help you find the body. They'll try to help you find the where is the body missing? You know, this guy knows the whole time he's the person that killed him.
I stole your money now.
What is diabolical? That is so freaking diabolical.
It is. That's an interesting perspective too, because I didn't really look into that. I've been hearing people. I guess I'll say I've been hearing people talk about it in passing and like seeing headlines, but I didn't take out the time to really look into it myself. About how they're basically saying that the case is closed, nothing to see here.
Oh yeah. There's nothing to see here. Like, come on now. And then Elon, see, none of this. He may have been able to be more slick about it if Elon didn't out him and tell everybody that he was on the list. And now that they outed him and said that he's on the list, he's basically like, what list? There's no list. There's never been a list. Like, what?
Trump gonna deport Elon. Trump gonna end up deporting Elon. He did that in public.
He did that in public. So I mean, basically, right now, this what I was saying was to go back to my point. The scary thing for the layperson, the voter, you voters should be very scared of this. Is the fact that either he is just on the biggest gaslighting thing ever, or he does not care that you know about his crimes now. He's at the point where he feels he has amassed so much power that it doesn't matter that you know about his crimes. It doesn't matter that I raped a couple children. What do you mean? You know what I'm saying? We're going forward. Right. So it's like, that to me, that is it. Because, I mean, basically when you say what list, everybody knows there was a list. And now it's come out that you and Steve Bannon were on that list. Probably the main characters on that list. It just looks kind of crazy. Now that you're like, what list?
Ghislaine Maxwell today, because she's still living, and she played a pretty big role in that whole thing. So I know they say she's in jail.
She's the fall person. She's the fall person for this whole operation.
She still knows the ins and outs.
And she even said she had a list.
Yeah.
What's up?
Well, thank you so much for calling and always providing an interesting perspective to the conversation. Because, like I said, I have been hearing about the list in passing, but, you know, it's so many other things going on right now that sometimes you kind of just hear about things and it kind of goes off your mind. But yeah, that's really interesting that you know they're trying to say that this list is pretty much gone or didn't it wasn't here. I don't know. Again, like I
Yeah,
said, none of
it
these
never
people are
existed.
clean. They're not clean, and if anybody believes that any of these people in these positions are clean, they're really naive and sadly mistaken because that's just not the
Yeah,
way that this
absolutely.
works. Pretty much.
But just to add this before I go, you basically said exactly what Trump said. He's like, well, you guys are still talking about this list. We got ICE going on. We got tragedies. We got successes.
Right.
Like what?
He's yeah.
Hold on, what?
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I feel like, I mean, the corruption does need to be exposed, but it's not going to be exposed by those people. They're not going to out themselves or anybody that is in their circle. So, I mean,
It's
I guess we'll see what
diabolical.
happens. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's diabolical. Team Rob T's gonna out him, but Shelly speaks truth all the time.
All right, thank you so much.
Uh,
All right, all right, all right, all right. Any final closing remarks as we are about to get up out of here?
Um, just that whole birthright citizenship thing. On that note, I just feel like if wherever the child is born, the child should be automatically a citizen, should be automatically a citizen of that country. If I was making the laws, that's how I would make it. Now, if you come to a country illegally, right, and your status is not legit in that country, you choose to have a child in that country, knowing that you're eligible to be deported from that country, and you do have a child, and that child is a citizen, but you're not a citizen, you're up for why would you want to leave your child? That's my thing, and that's my final thought.
Um, I'll say this because I don't think that a child should be a citizen of a country that their parents are not citizens of because it puts the child too much at risk. It leaves the child in limbo. Because if you're a citizen of a country that your parents don't have any citizenship rights to, then that to me that just doesn't make any sense.
It does.
You're gonna be deported, but your child can stay.
And here's what.
That doesn't make sense.
So, but that's and like I said, why would you want to leave your child behind? No parent. In their
Some
natural-
people do
well,
and have.
Well, and so all right. So maybe there's a relative that can raise the child, right? Or the child comes back home, right, with parents, but is still an American citizen because of the birthright. And when that child is of age, that child might decide to come back to the country on their own, which that child should have a right because the child was born in that country, right? But and
Most of the children, I mean, I could see where there could be space for that, but a lot of the children probably won't even want to come back. You live your life in a completely different country, and it's like, okay, I mean, maybe you would want to come back, but
now, remember the whole milk and honey thing, right? So even if
America's not the only place in the world with milk and honey.
So even if I'm born in America as to immigrant parents get deported, right? And they're good parents, so they don't leave me behind. They take me home with them, right? I grew up in a foreign country, not foreign to me because that's not where I was born, but not foreign to them, native to them. I grew up there and I learned that culture and all of that, right? But now I have the opportunity that I can easily just get a passport, jump on a plane, get my U.S. passport because I'm a U.S. citizen, and jump on a plane and come back over. I don't have to go through any immigration processes or anything like that because I am a U.S. born citizen. I'm not dragging my parents with me, but I was born on that land, so I should have that right.
I mean, there's definitely room to discuss that because it makes sense, but the people don't agree with that, and that's precisely why this thing is where it is right now. With people saying no, your parents tried to abuse the immigration laws; they weren't citizens, and it's just a revolving door. But again, we're gonna see.
You don't punish the child. What society? What does that say about America if they choose to punish that child? Right, that child that had no say so in where it was born. Punish the hell out of the parents. But why punish that child? And
Oh, excuse me. Oh my God.
why take that citizenship away from that child? And again, if there is a resident relative that could raise the child here in the States and is willing to, and the parents are willing to make that separation, then so be it. But most parents, I would think most parents would take their newborn child home with them, right? Build a life or whatever, but I still really feel like that child should have that right because they were born on that land. And I really feel like if that particular part of the conversation is spoken about more, we'd have more clarity and less arguments about it.
Well, that part of the conversation is what people are talking about because that's what birthright citizenship is. But like I said, there's an overwhelming majority of people, at least in the United States of America. I can't speak for the rest of the world. I don't know how people in other countries feel if they feel like if you come here and have a child, which again, like I said, there's not that many countries that have birthright citizenship. But it's just something that's not very popular in this country. Like a lot of there's an overwhelming percentage of people that don't agree with that. They don't feel like if you come here and you have a child because you want to just have a way for that child to be a citizen of a country that you're not a citizen of, then people don't agree with that. They feel like you should go to your country of origin and have a child in your country.
100%, and I'm not debating that at all. What my conversation and what I'm saying that people should be focused on is the opposite. So I went through family court in Florida at a time when the Florida legislator said we need to go about family court in a specific way where we're looking at the child's need first.
Mm-hmm.
And who cares about what the parents got going on? What's best for the child first? Who cares about what parent is going to hurt? Which one of the parents is going to go home with this, feeling sad? Which one is going to go home paying child support for the next 18 years? None of that matters when you're looking at what's more important. What's best for the child's? What's the best for that child's interest, right? I think it's the same way. Instead of the conversation being about the parents that come here and do it, the conversation needs to be about the child. That child that had no say-so in where it was born. It was just born.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And again, punish parents for whatever crimes, none of that matters.
So you agree, your perspective is that should be a law. That if you're born in a country, then you're a citizen of that.
You're a citizen of that country, regardless of what. If your parents get deported, they need to be better parents and taking you home with them.
Well, I mean, currently that's what it is. But again, like I said, a lot of people just don't agree with that because they feel like people are abusing
Right.
that
That's my point.
particular immigration policy.
That's my point. That's my point right there. People are thinking that people are abusing, and they're right. But we need to have another conversation. The innocent children that aren't abusing nothing. You see what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying
Because once we're having that conversation about the parents, yeah, I'm with you. Send them home.
That's the premise of the entire conversation. We're just gonna stop. We're just gonna prevent that from happening. We're just going to end birthright citizenship, and nobody. You're not punishing unborn children because they're not born yet.
But you're punishing the child, the children that are born.
Whoever has birthright citizenship now, their citizenship is not going to be revoked because they're already citizens. That's not a law.
If the
yet.
law changes to what you're saying,
they're not going to lose their citizenship.
No, I'm talking about the new children born under that. You're still punishing the children. I'm not talking about unborn children. I'm talking about children born in America. That's a child now being punished because they're born in a land, and we're telling that child you're a citizen of nowhere. And now your parents have to
If you're pregnant and you know they're about to end birthright citizenship, you need to go back to your country and have your baby because you're going to put your child in a position. Well, the child's just not going to be a citizen and everybody's going to go home.
I don't think birthright citizenship should be ended. I'm against it.
I don't think people should exploit the immigration policies and try to rewrite a law because they want to. I don't agree with that.
I feel like once we
because if that's the case, then there shouldn't be any laws because people get to maneuver the laws however they see fit without any type of legal process happening for that law to be changed. Now, if they change the law, then so be it. But if the law could change, that's my point. If they change the law, then so be it. That's what it's going to be. But if it's not written into law right now, and people think that they're just going to change the law because they feel like they should be able to, I don't foresee that happening. And that's not going to happen.
Well, see, the thing is, that's the conversation, is the interpretation of what's written about the birthright citizenship. Right? Because that's the conversation right now. The interpretation.
Right, they're going to solidify that. And Trump's angle is to solidify it and say, okay, this is only for the slaves and their descendants. That's what he is trying to solidify. Now his opponents want to say, okay, well, we need to fine tune this thing and let it roll the way it's been rolling for like a few decades or so.
I think see, the conversation, right now the conversation is open. I'm a person that has a say in the conversation, right? And if this is something that I think I'm allowed for something, right? That birthright citizenship needs to be granted to any child born on U.S. territory. Period. It doesn't give the parents any. I'm not saying you give the parents any special rights because of this. But the child, the innocent child, has a right, has that right.
I mean, as it stands, that's the way it's currently happening. Because every child, if somebody has a baby today in America, the child is going to be an American citizen because there hasn't been any decision made on what. Now, technically, it said, the 14th Amendment was implemented for slaves and their descendants. But I guess there's some language in there that leaves a loophole, and that loophole has been getting used for quite some time. So they're trying to close that loophole and say, no, this is exactly what we want this to say, and this is what is going to be moving forward. Now, as it stands right now, nobody who's born here is going to be getting deported because they're an American citizen. But once they come to whatever final decision they're going to make on this amendment, if they say, no, this is what this amendment is for, everybody born here after that decision is made will not be an American citizen. And that's just going to be what the law is.
Ain't going down on my watch.
It might happen and it might not happen.
I'll become a politician.
You ain't about to waste your time becoming no politician for that.
I bet I will.
No,
I'm
you won't.
passionate about that. Honestly, I'm passionate about protecting children's rights. Yes, I'm passionate about that. And that's being overlooked. This whole conversation is really being overlooked.
I don't think it's being overlooked because they're still citizens. They're not illegal citizens. They're not illegal
the
immigrants
conversation is
because
to
their
try to change
parents
that.
are.
Right, the conversation is to try to change
I
that.
think people need to use their common sense and stop feeling like they can just come to this country and do whatever they want to do. Because no matter how you feel about America, America is a nation that has laws. And too many people feel entitled to come here and do whatever they want to do. And you're not going to do that anywhere else in the world. You're not going to go into a country and just do what you want to do and violate their laws and then have people roll out the red carpet for you. That's not realistic.
And again, my part of the conversation is being overlooked. Because
I'm
we're
not
talking
overlooking your part
we're
of the
talking about-
conversation.
We're talking about people that have the capability to make decisions and are able to know what's right or wrong.
Okay, but as a child, you're going to be integrated into whatever your parents do. You're not a legal adult.
Right.
So if your parents make a dumbass decision to break a country's immigration law, they are putting you at risk. They didn't think about your safety. They didn't think about what's going to happen to you because they were too eager to try to have their way.
I'm not trying to change none of that. What I'm saying
You're
is
saying the child is
be a citizen.
the child is a citizen. No, if the parents break the immigration law, if this becomes a law, and they say if you're not a citizen, your child will not be a citizen. So do not come here and have a baby because you're putting your child at risk of not being a legal citizen, and you still do it after you've been told not to do it because the law is implanted and sealed and implemented, and you still do it. Then whose fault is that? That's your fault because you should have the common sense to know better.
If they change that law, nobody's going to do that. But people are doing
But
it
as
right
it
now
sta-
because that's the law.
As
If
it
they
stands
change it,
right
of
now,
course
that
somebody-
child is a legal citizen. So I don't know why we keep saying that we're violating. No, the child's rights are not being violated
If you change
because
that-
they're a citizen.
But if you change that, then
The child will still be a citizen if they're already born and a current citizen.
A new child after the law has been changed.
Their parents are violating the law. They're going to have to be a casualty of their parents' dumbass decision. Yes. Yes.
I'm not with that.
Why do people act like people who come here as immigrants get to violate the immigration laws? That doesn't make any sense. You know how many black people were torn away from their children because they went to jail?
Again, I'm not talking-
Nobody gave a fuck about those children's rights,
Again,
that they needed their parents. Their parents broke the law and the children suffered the consequences of their parents'
I'm
actions.
not saying
How is that any different than anybody
I
else?
didn't say the parents need the children need the child. That's not my argument. That's not my argument at all. The parents, the child does need the parents. That's why the parents will and should take the child. On most cases, take the child unless
You're
there's-
talking about children who are already alive. If your child is in your womb and you're here illegally and you know if I have this baby here, my child is not going to be a citizen, then why do it?
nobody's going to do it.
Okay, so
People
what's...
are doing it. The only reason we're having this conversation is because people are doing it because the law is the law of the land right now.
I don't think the law should remain that way. I don't think that people should continue to exploit the immigration policies
all right, so here's the
because they want to.
here's the
Something needs to be set in stone to say, okay, this either way it's going to go.
So here's the difference.
Your child is going to be a citizen, or your child is not going to be a citizen, because again, this could go either way. Congress could step in and say, okay, damn the Supreme Court, we want it to be this way.
So here's the difference. In past, right, up until as far as I can remember back, that if you are a child that's born here, right, the parents would now have an easier route through immigration.
And that's why they're doing it.
The parents would have an easier way through immigration,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, that easier way through immigration is no more because of this immigration. That's already started, right? So right now, if ICE goes and picks up a couple or a parent that has a U.S.-born citizen, the child can stay.
If the parents say so, yes.
Yeah, the child can stay. The child has a right.
Correct.
Because that's an American citizen.
Mm-hmm.
But the parent no longer has that special rights.
No, because
Say,
they never
listen,
had it to begin with,
no,
they were
didn't
taking
have-
a chance.
But they didn't really have it to begin with, but it was there.
It was there for them to try to exploit it, but that doesn't mean
But
that they were
right.
going to get that
So
opportunity.
that's my point.
So we want people to be able to...
my point.
Okay.
Deal with that parent and deal with that change, and that's already happened. That's already happened. Instead of saying, okay, I come into your house to deport you, you hold up the child and say, hey, listen, no, I have an American citizen here, you can't deport me right now. That is no longer, you can't do that anymore. Right? I come into your house to deport you, you don't have an American child. Yeah, the American child can stay, but you gotta go. Are you gonna take your child with you or not? Right? That is currently the situation right now under the current administration, without anything else changing. So there is no real need to go further and harm a child that's saying, hey, listen, that child that.
But what's the harm?
Now,
I guess that's the part I'm confused about. What's the
because-
harm if this is not affecting any children that are not born yet? They'll be born in their parents' country of origin. How is that harm?
if their parent chooses to go home, if their parent can go home.
What do you mean if their parent can
If
go
their
home?
parent can go home, have somewhere to go home to.
How would they not have somewhere to
Okay.
go home to?
Imagine right now. Just imagine right now. Right?
Okay.
We're all here, and I'm a citizen now. Right? I'm a citizen now. I
Okay.
wasn't always a citizen.
Okay.
But I'm a citizen now. Right? Let's say, for instance, they say you've ever been convicted of a misdemeanor, and you weren't a birthright citizen, you acquired citizenship, then that citizenship is no longer valid, and you need to go home,
Okay.
right? And let's say, for instance, like you were pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
right? Let's say, for instance, also that you were an American citizen.
I weren't an
No,
American
You
citizen.
were my wife, and I brought you in. Because I became a citizen, I brought you over, and we're in the process of getting you to become an American citizen.
Okay.
But I just lost mine, so that's another one of the laws that's on the books. If you're married to an American citizen, it makes it easier for you to get your citizenship. Right? So we go through all of that, and they say, okay, well, I gotta go. Right? We just had a baby, and we have all these children that are American citizens. Why do we have to? Why does that child and all the children have to get hurt and say, hey, now you're also your citizenship also needs to be revoked?
Why would the children's citizenship be revoked when they have birthright citizenship? Because you're a citizen. You're a citizen.
But they just revoked my citizenship. Remember, I got my citizenship through paperwork.
But the children have birthright citizenship.
Right, but they just revoked mine, so that means they're losing.
No, they have birth. That's the point of birthright citizenship. They were born on American soil.
Right, so yes, that's my point. That's the benefit. That's the question you just asked.
That's not the question I just
You just
asked.
asked
I understand what birthright
why-
citizenship is. And birthright citizenship is currently happening in the country.
Right, and that's what they're trying to change.
Okay, and if they change it, they just change it. And people will have to go to their homeland.
And
How is that? What? That's not punishment. You're just going home.
if they can't, if there is some kind of situation going
Well, that's
on
why they
somewhere,
have
like,
asylum
for
laws,
instance,
which is different from.
like for instance, that's why I brought it up, because like for instance, for me, I have no plan on moving to Jamaica. I have no kind of.
But you can't say that
anything
you
going on
can't go
back
back
there.
to Jamaica
I'm not
because
saying
you
I
can't.
I'm not saying I can't. I can't, but some people can't really go back to where like.
But why can't they go back? What would be the circumstances for why they couldn't go back home? Are they in a war-torn country? Because if you're in a war-torn country, then you're eligible for asylum, and that's something completely different.
But you still got to go through the asylum process. But even that under this administration is very, very hard.
Yeah, but if you're in a war-torn country, you'll be prioritized for asylum.
Look at Haiti. Haiti's a war-torn country.
Haiti's not at war right now.
They're
not. Their country is. They're having all types of, issues going on economically, and things are bad. But they're not in an active war. You have people who were refugees in other places like Somalia and things like that, who were actual refugees because their countries were at war and they sought asylum and things like that. That's something completely. Those are the only extenuating circumstances for why you can't go back home. But other than that, you can go home. Is it going to be challenging and difficult? Yes. But that doesn't mean that you can't go back home. But again, I understand people saying, okay, these circumstances are bad. I don't want to go back into this bad situation. But that is not a grounds for them to care, is the point, because they don't care.
I'm not aggravated for nobody here for an adult to have the choice to make that.
They don't even care about the children, because their point is the adults are putting the children at risk by making the decisions that they're making. And I feel like if you are going to do that to your child, then you're acting irresponsibly. That's my point. It is an irresponsible decision to put your child in that position. And I don't think that is...
That's if you decide to leave your child, right? That's if you decide to leave your child.
If they change the law and they say, your child will not be a citizen because birthright citizenship is ending, please don't put your child in that position. Don't do it. Because they're not going to be a citizen. It doesn't matter if you feel like they should be, they won't be. And then at that point, you're not going to have anybody to blame but yourself. And that's my whole point. But again, like I said, we don't know what's going to happen. They could swing the pendulum in the other direction and say, okay, it's fair for people who are born here to be citizens because they were born on American soil. It makes sense, but that they don't have to do that because the parents are not citizens. And if they choose not to do it, then that's just what it's going to be. And that's my final thoughts on the whole situation. Like, not everything in life is going to be fair, unfortunately. And if people disagree with that and they feel it's unfair, they're going to have to come together and champion a cause. I mean, hell, My foreparents had to do it. We didn't have that. My foreparents didn't have many rights at all in this country. They had to fight for those rights, and they were successful in fighting for those rights. And other people are going to have to do the same thing if they don't agree with the way things are going. And that is my final thoughts. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in to tonight's episode of Shelly Speaks Truth right here on Too Raw for TV Night TV. We will be back here next week, God willing, same time, same place, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Too Raw for TV. Thank you for watching and have a good night.